Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob from Oceanside, our host, the beautiful Mission Pacific Hotel. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by MasterSpas, SFuels Go Longer, HOKA Let's Fly, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot Sports, the original triathlon brand, Premium Plus Sports, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, one of the most decorated triathletes in history, Olympic silver medalist, Ironman World Champion, Paralympic gold medalist, Ironman Hall of Fame, way too many other Hall of Fames to mention. Michellie Jones joins us. How are you doing?
Good, Bobby. How are you?
I am spectacular. I was reading an article today. It was flashing back to the Danskin Triathlon.
Yeah.
Did you see that too? Triathlete had something on the Danskin Triathlon. And I'm like, that was an event that was way ahead of its time.
You know, it was fantastic that, back in the day, they understood that showcasing women's sport was super, super important. And,
Yes.
That's what Danskin was all about. And then to have the Danskin Triathlon series, impacted me personally.
Oh, yeah.
And also impacted so many other female athletes to get off the couch or, do something for themselves if
Yes.
they were, had a big family commitments and,
Yep.
and they did their first triathlon.
And the fun part about that was that I remember the one here I think it was called Vacation Village back then,
Yeah.
and there was one woman I think had a portable hairdryer. She came out of the water, she's drying her hair.
I have a much better story.
Oh,
Bob.
yeah.
I think it was in Seattle, and I actually had finished the race, and I was watching the rest of the females come through, and this one athlete sat down and opened up a cooler and was eating cake.
During
And
the
I'm
transition, or
that's smart. During transition after the swim, because she was so excited she got through the swim. Her reward was some cake afterwards, and I'm like, that's a smart cookie right there.
You know what? And it's funny because just the camaraderie at those events
Yeah.
was just so different. And you wouldn't think, because most of us guys who are racing, we're not really racing. We're racing against ourselves and racing against the course. But just eliminating guys completely takes some of that, I don't know, tension away. And it was always fun to go to those races because it was just, it was all about just everybody cheering each other on.
Yeah, and I think Sally Edwards had a really good philosophy that, no one finishes last.
She's going to always be last.
Yeah, so there was always Sally who would finish last at a lot of the races. And I think that's super intimidating for somebody who's never done a race.
Yes.
I have athletes that I coach that are never going to finish dead last, but that's what their biggest fear is, that they're going to finish, last. And nobody wants to be that last competitor. So just super smart on Sally Edwards' part for taking that whole element away.
Yeah. And the event, you had BMW as a sponsor.
Yeah.
They had.
I want a BMW.
You want a BMW
yeah.
at that
how
racers.
fantastic that you can go and do a short course, super fast, women's only event and win a BMW.
Well, and also you had, with the races all over the country, you raced in New York and you raced out of Palm Desert.
And Milwaukee and San Diego and Seattle, all these awesome places that really like had huge fields for their time.
We're talking 2,500, 3,000 women at those as a women-only event, which was unbelievable. And I remember being on the phone with Greg Rourke, who was the founder of that series.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and I said, this young woman named Michellie Jones just came over here from Australia, and she's going to be special. And
thanks to Bobby, I got my first sponsor. But Bob, you helped me in so many more ways. But yeah, that really got my foot in the door here in the US to actually have you take notice, and then have Danskin, and then they had the Danskin Women's Triathlon Series. Right. It definitely opened a lot of doors for me here in the US, because it didn't matter what I'd done in Australia.
No,
it was what
cared.
I was going to do now. It's a little different now.
Yes.
You can come in to the US and race no matter what country that you have, that the sport has grown so much that we have so many fantastic athletes from here in the US still, but across the entire world.
But I remember when I was talking to Greg, I said, Greg, I think this would be a great person for you to sponsor. And he goes, I really don't have sponsorship dollars, but I'll tell you what I'll do. Yeah. Whatever she wins, I'll match. Right?
I'm like, perfect.
If she wins, if she gets third and she gets, I don't know what third place was, if it's $500, she gets $1,000. And I think like in the first race, you might have got third. In the second race, you got fourth. And then you won 20 in a row or something like that.
Yes.
Well, BMW.
Yeah.
That was.
As I said, it definitely, like the Danskin series, definitely like, got my whole career started when you look about it. Thanks to you, Bob, and thanks to the series and the support that the sponsors provided that series.
The other thing about that was how they showcased not just triathletes, but the ads that Greg bought in Sports Illustrated with you and Camille Duvall from water skiing and the paddleboard. Yes.
Yeah. Katarina Witt.
Yes.
Like I have this awesome poster with these amazing athletes that, I was just like, oh my God.
And
even Fernanda Keller was like another, she was the other triathlete on the team as well. Yeah.
And you guys were at that time, Sports Illustrated was a Bible of sport.
Yeah.
And seeing in their swimsuit issue, the real athletes, real swimsuits. And it was you guys who were world-class athletes being showcased in this magazine that had the highest readership of any magazine around.
Yeah, I think one of the best taglines that that Danskin had was that real men marry athletes.
They did.
Remember that?
I do remember that. So, that was very fun.
Yeah, they were definitely ahead of their time.
So far ahead of their time. But what we're seeing now is, actually we'll be interviewing in a little while. We'll be interviewing Chelsea Sodaro, who is second mom to win Ironman.
I love her story.
I love her story as well. Yeah. But she was transitioning from running and a lot of stress fractures and things like that to be, she was rehabbing from all that stuff, swimming and riding, and then moved into triathlon.
And don't forget, exceptional talent from running.
She was Diamond League. We're talking world class.
Yes.
And 6 years after Diamond League, she wins the Ironman World Championship.
Yeah.
Going from, she was running the track. We're talking short distance. You were a short distance triathlete. You were an Olympic distance triathlete. And then when you were left off the 2004 Olympic team, it was like, okay, maybe I'll do something else. The next thing you know, you're going to freaking Kona.
Yeah. I mean, thanks to Paul and Newby Fraser.
Thanks to Paul and Newby Fraser, who basically told me, do not call Michellie. You're not taking her to your silly pool triathlons because Michellie.
I love those, and I still love those.
Michellie needs to train.
The grassroots of the sport, I love it.
And do brook workouts on the weekend and all that type of stuff so she can go win
Ironman.
Ride
long and she was right.
She was spot on.
Yeah, I mean, without her, there's no way. Without her guidance, there's no way I would have ever been a world champion at the Ironman distance. So.
I remember when you came over, and it might have been the first time you came over to see that
Never,
race.
ever.
We were watching the winner of the race, Mark Allen, and I don't know what year it was, but it was maybe it was his last win, 95, 93. I can't remember which one it was. But the guy just won. And he's on a stretcher. He's on a stretcher.
I'm like, that's for crazy people.
And his feet are covered with blood, and they've got an IV, and his whole body is shaking, and he just won the race. And you and I are standing there, and you're like, no.
Yeah, but it's amazing where destiny leads you, because, when I first started in athletics, my talent identification was race walking, and thank goodness I didn't have a passion for that. And it was my high school run coach that saw something. And then, as I progressed, I wanted to come and race against the best people in the world. So it was here in the US. And then it was like I win my first world championship at my third attempt at the Worlds. And then, my second attempt at Hawaii, Ironman, I win. And, the silver lining, of course, a silver medal at the Olympics. I never thought I'd be good enough to go to the Olympics and to walk away with a silver medal. Like, somebody asked me to share that the other day, and it sort of still brings like a little tears to my eyes, because it's very, very special that, we have this little sport called triathlon that has come such a long way in a short amount of time, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
And being there for that first ever Olympic triathlon in 2000, being there for that, staying at your house.
Yeah, people don't understand, I think now, like how remarkable it was that we actually got into Sydney 2000.
Because sports started in 74.
Yeah.
We're talking 20, and it was announced 20 years after we started. It was like 94, 95.
Yeah.
I think when they announced we're going to be in the Olympics in 2000.
And we thought we might get into Atlanta in 1996. And when we didn't.
Almost did. Yeah, mountain biking got in and beach volleyball got in, and then we got in 2000. But the fact that this little teeny sport got into the Olympics at all, and you talk about stars colliding, and you talk about worlds colliding. You have Lisa Lax, who was producing the Ironman TV show for NBC.
Yeah.
NBC has the TV rights. So she's the one who says to NBC, we need to start the games with the triathlon.
I know, and how fantastic. I mean, lucky for me, like being an Australian, winning Australia's first Olympic medal at the 2000 Olympics.
Yes.
So cool. I mean, Bobby, you were right there when we got mugged.
Yes.
The night after the race.
Well, because you wanted to go home. You wanted to go to sleep.
Well, no. Well, I had just, raced a triathlon. They are hard. But yeah, it's like, and remember the police had to come and get us.
They did. The best part was we walked through all these parks and they had big screen TVs, which was very novel in 2000.
Yeah.
And all it took was a little, I'm with the Olympic silver medalist. And people just came flocking. And every bar we wanted to go to, that medal, man, that was like the golden ticket.
But not only that, like the morning of the race, it was like just amazing how many people were out on the course cheering for you, and the race hadn't even started. Like when I went out for my warm-up,
yes,
it was like nothing but go Aussie, go Aussie. It was just an amazing feeling. Like a lot of people will say, well, don't you wish you had have raced in like another country? And I'm like, are you kidding me?
No.
Racing in your home country in front of so many people who have helped you and supported you, and my friends and family. Of course, my twin sister Gabby was crying in the stands as I was getting announced, and then I was crying. I'm like, come on, no crying. There's no crying.
There's triathlon.
But that's, I think, one thing that people don't understand sometimes, I think, about triathlon and how emotional it is.
Yes.
Yeah, the Olympics Games is emotional, but Ironman is just as emotional. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. You come across that finish line, it's an amazing, amazing experience.
I like the bookend of your career when you talk about the Olympic silver medal in 2000. And it was the first ever, it was inaugural triathlon. Then 16 years later,
I got triathlon's first ever silver medal. How cool is that?
Exactly. And then inaugural Paratriathlon in 2016 in Rio, and you get a gold medal.
Yeah, and like that story is really cool because like I wasn't even the first pick to be a guide. Emma Snowsill was, because they thought I was going to be too tall. Thankfully for me, she was pregnant. So, it's funny how destiny, like I said at the beginning, how destiny sort of steps in and like, what an amazing experience that was for me. And everyone said, thank you. And I'm going, are you kidding me? Thank you. Like,
exactly.
To give back to the sport and give somebody else an opportunity to live that Olympic dream.
Yes.
And then to live the Olympic dream of winning a gold medal. Like, absolutely amazing.
The interesting part for me was you were there when we started Challenge Athletes Foundation.
Yes, I was.
93.
Yeah.
So you had exposure to Rudy and some of our visually impaired athletes. Every time we did a paratriathlon camp, you were there coaching.
Yeah, like I remember Rudy's like first couple of triathlons.
Yeah.
Just like, and just seeing him grow up and the amazing thing that he's done in sport and the amazing thing he's encouraged so many different people and he's inspired and like he's still inspiring. And I mean, I think that was really cool for me after Sydney, that I had these parents coming up and going, oh, my little girl was in the backyard practicing triathlon. And that's what the Olympics does, right?
Yeah, it does.
It definitely, like, it sets the sport up in such a different way because now you're exposed to so many different people and who never would have thought about triathlon. And that's sort of how the Paralympics is for a lot of people. They don't understand it, but then all of a sudden they see it and they're like, oh my goodness, how awesome are these athletes? And that's the thing. The athletes are amazing.
They are amazing. And people don't quite understand that, but they get that exposure. And the fact that you were exposed to the challenge athletes way back in 94, 95, 96, when it became, and then when Triathlon Australia said, hey, we want you to get involved, you'd already been involved.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It wasn't,
and another thing, like, thanks to you and the Challenge Athletes Foundation, like our little sport, look what it's provided. Like that again, that's what I love about triathlon. It's little, but it is so far-reaching.
I call it a small sport with a huge heart.
That's so true. I'm going to have to use that one.
You
Bob.
can use that. And actually, tomorrow is our grant day. Last year, we sent out 3,256 grants totaling $6.2 million. And tomorrow, I think we'll be sending out more.
That is amazing,
That's
isn't
pretty
it?
fun.
Like how many lives you've touched. And, again, it's like, sharing my story about, these young kids saying, I want to do triathlon. And that's what the Challenge Athletes Foundation has done, right? It's like they've enabled people to dream.
Right.
That
Absolutely.
life isn't over, that you can still be competitive, you can do sports. And, for me, it's like triathlon's been so life-changing, and it's so awesome what Challenge Athletes has done, because they impacted me early,
Yes.
like the motivation that you see and the inspirational stories, but like the hands-on, like understanding there's limits that insurance companies will give these athletes.
Yes.
Because they are athletes and they deserve to continue to live their lives. And I think sport is such a fantastic way to live out your life.
And what you mentioned earlier, that I think people just assume, triathlon's always been in the Olympics.
Yeah,
and how big a deal it was for us when
Yeah.
it was accepted.
And then for triathlon.
Yeah, same thing. Paratriathlon as well. My buddy John Beeson was really involved. He's a single arm amputee, and he was so involved with getting us in. And when he first went to Colorado Springs and said, I want to get paratriathlon in, they're like, no, that'll never happen.
Yeah, and people don't understand, like paratriathlon, it's amazing because there's so many different categories.
Yeah, the classifications are really hard.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of medals. A lot of medals are handed out in paratriathlon, where able bodies, really there's only like, a gold medal for the men and the women, and then a gold medal for the relay.
Yes.
So really only 3 gold medals, and like it's so awesome that, that there's so many different categories, and as there should be, because we're all different, and you definitely need to categorize these athletes out to make it a fair and competitive.
I'm guessing if Michellie Jones was racing as a pro today, that you would be obviously on the ITIA circuit.
I wish I had these shoes when I raced.
Now, how impactful are the shoes in terms of the graphite plate?
Yes, they do make you run faster. There's no doubt. But it's not just that; it's the recovery component. You just don't get the microfiber tears that you would compared to, traditional run shoes. So, just that in itself, like you can recover after these hard sessions and these hard races.
And do it again next week.
Yeah, but these athletes are like at next level.
They are.
These athletes, when you look at what they're doing and how competitive it is, it's like, man, I'm glad I did it in my time. But everything's different. If we weren't progressing, I'd be worried.
Right.
Your
Absolutely,
sport has
get better.
to progress, and we sort of stalled there for a while. But now it's like in 2022, it was just amazing to see all these young talented athletes coming through.
Well, and I know for years when I've interviewed Dave Scott and we talk about the Ironman, he's like, I still don't get it. These guys are running 106 halves and they're running 240 for the marathon. I just saw Patrick Lange run 230, and I think that's where all it takes is one. When somebody does it, you can be done.
Look at the 4-minute mile.
Exactly.
Perfect example.
Yep.
And in any sport, you strive for something, and when one person does it, you think it's like when I came here to the US. I was one of the
with
first.
Your Ford Maverick.
Yeah, my Ford Maverick, my first
with
car.
with the roof coming off.
Yeah, hey, it got me around.
It did.
But that's the thing. It's like then all of a sudden, other Australians started following suit.
Yes.
We got more and more Australians, and you see that in every sport, that like if your country person does well, you're going to follow them and follow them and follow them and try to better them.
We just were talking to Mickey Togholtz, and Maya Stage Nielsen, and same type of thing, where in Denmark now, Magnus and there's Daniel Bakkegaard, there's so many great athletes training together, pushing each other. But the interesting part when you mention Australia, I remember talking to Craig Alexander about this. It's not like back then the racing was in Europe or in the States. It's not like you go there for the weekend. When you're making that trip, you're committing and you're leaving your family or leaving family, friends for 6 months minimum, probably forever. But you're leaving for a long period of time, and that's hard. You can
but but that's sort of true for any sport. You go to training camps, you commit to it, and it's not really a sacrifice because you love what you do.
It. Yeah.
definitely if when it gets to that point where you're not loving what you're going to do, then, then you have to like have a serious think but I think it's just, that's the way it is. When you live in Australia, you're so far away from everything, that's for sure. And you do need to go on and race to be competitive.
Right.
And like the Australians, when I was professionally in the sport in like right before the Olympics, like we finished first, second, third, fourth and fifth at the World Championships of women.
Yes.
That's how competitive the Australian women were. Plus,
they were expecting a sweep.
Yeah, which was so silly because I remember after the race, I don't know if you know who Laurie Lawrence is, but he's a famous Australian swim coach. And he sort of did our brief after the Olympics. And he's like, everyone was so disappointed. I'm like, I wasn't. I'm like, triathlon is so dynamic. Anything can happen.
Yeah,
it's not like swimming down a black line. There's not much that can change. There's so much can change in triathlon. And he sort of looked at me at the dinner and he goes, Michellie, even you're disappointed you got the silver. And I was like,
no, I'm not.
Are you kidding me? It's like, there's no guarantee. Olympics is every 4 years.
Yes.
You have to wake up every 4 years and be at the top of your game.
On that day.
On that day, on that second. And you know what? It is what it is.
Yes.
I talk a lot about destiny, and I'm like, my destiny was to win the silver.
Exactly.
If I had won the gold, maybe I wouldn't have done the Ironman. Maybe I wouldn't have got to do the Paralympics. And I would never, ever take any of that away by saying, okay, I want to swap that out for a gold medal.
In our conversations over the years, you always talked about, I didn't lose the gold, I won the silver.
Yeah.
And you never made a big deal about the fact that Bridget McMahon went positive for drugs a few years later. That's like, listen, you control what you can control, which is why
and that's one of my favorite coaching sayings.
Well, and that's why you've been so successful as an athlete and as a coach, because you don't let the noise
Well, sometimes you let the noise get in the way. That's human. But yeah, you can't control what other people are doing. You can't control what other people are saying. It's like you can only control you.
Right.
And, sometimes you let that little chimp brain get in the way. But like 9 times out of 10, it's like before every race, I would take a big, deep breath and like really visualize why I wanted to do it and what I wanted to do on the day. And I think that really helped.
Love it. Always a pleasure. We don't have to talk about the race. We're just talking
I wanted to talk about the race. No, I love this race. You know why I love this race? Because it's challenging. Like people sort of don't sort of underestimate how hard it is, because the first part of the course, it's pretty nice. I mean,
when you get up to San Onofre and all that's pretty mellow.
Yeah.
Swim,
and it's like
then
you burn too many matches there because you're like, oh, it feels so good. And then you get to some of the hills on the back end of the course.
And then the headwind.
And then the last 10K, the headwind. And, even the run.
It's
the concrete on the run, that picks your legs up a little bit.
And those little climbs up the pier and that gradual up on both sides.
And for a lot of people, it's the first race of the season. I always wanted to see, if we change this race to like the middle of the season or the end of the season, like what the difference would be, because this is a tough little race.
It is.
And with the surf, I mean, when I raced it, we didn't start in the surf. I would have loved that.
Yes. Always a pleasure, Michellie.
Thank you,
Thank
Bobby.
you for taking time. Michellie Jones has been our guest, everybody. Again, Breakfast with Bob. We are here at the Mission Pacific Hotel. Hold on. We will be right back.